Give me 23 minutes to break your weakness. The Promise and the Awakening. You're not here to hear recycled motivational phrases, but to witness how something inside you breaks and reveals what was always hidden. Weakness isn't your essence. It's a story you've repeated so many times that you believed it to be true. It's like a rusty suit of armor you carry without realizing it's impeding you from moving. Musashi never spoke to those seeking comfort, but to those who are ready to see life as a battlefield. If you continue listening, it won't be a transformation. It will be your return. What's about to happen isn't adding something to you, but removing what's superfluous. Peeling away the layers of lies you created to protect yourself, but which made you a prisoner. Every excuse, every moment you gave in to please was a blow against your inner edge. That edge never disappeared. It just waited for you to stop fearing it. That's why this moment isn't motivation. It's recovery. Musashi despised complacency. He knew that the path is unforgiving to those who hesitate, and that there is no neutral ground. Either you sharpen your sword or you let it rust. His words were like clean cuts, not meant to wound, but to separate the true from the false. He spoke not to those who hide from conflict, but to those who have decided to face it with a steady gaze and a firm mind. If you've made it this far, it means you're tired of waiting for a rescue that will never come. You've decided to leave behind the fear, passivity, and justifications that made you invisible. And you're ready to face that part of yourself you buried so as not to cause discomfort. This is the point where the warrior awakens. It's not about creating a new version of you, but about unleashing the original, the one that never asked permission to exist. Strength doesn't come from outside, but from a deep place you've learned to ignore. And when that strength awakens, it won't be a spark. It'll be a fire no one can extinguish. What weakness really is. Many people think weakness is crying too much, being small, or lacking discipline. But that's just appearances. True weakness is more subtle and dangerous, relying on validation from those who don't know your worth. It's choosing peace over truth, keeping quiet about what you want to avoid judgment, disguising your fear as humility. It's misunderstanding passivity for virtue. The modern world has learned to applaud docility because it keeps it predictable and controllable. They call your hesitation prudence, your restraint maturity, and your submission kindness. But behind such praise lies a vested interest. As long as you are docile, you will be manageable. Musashi understood that a true warrior cannot be tamed. A man must always fight to avoid being absorbed by the clan, Musashi would have said in his own way. And he wasn't talking about a physical struggle, but a mental one. It's the battle to keep your instincts alive when everyone wants to neutralize them. It's about remaining dangerous, not chaotic, firm, not arrogant, unwavering, not rigid. The world doesn't want this. It wants you to lay down your sword. Weakness is accepting that saying no is selfish, that prioritizing yourself is narcissism, that defending your boundaries is aggression. It's surrendering your inner edge in exchange for fitting in. It's allowing yourself to be taught to fear the clarity of your own edge. And every time you give in, your blade rusts a little more. Today, the first cut against that illusion is to recognize that you were trained to confuse weakness with kindness. When that lie breaks, you see how many times you chose to be acceptable instead of being truthful. And that's the moment the blade begins to shine again.
The social mask and the price of conformity.
From a young age, you learn to wear masks. At work, to appear professional. At home, to avoid tension. With friends, to be accepted. Over time, that mask sticks to your skin until you forget what your true face looks like. Musashi called this dying in spirit, letting someone else's mold encase you until you forget you ever had your own form. The price isn't immediate, but it's profound. It arrives like a tiredness that sleep doesn't cure, a frustration that distractions don't dissipate. It's the silent resentment of living to keep the surface calm while something inside burns. This prison has no bars, but invisible ropes woven with social approval. The mask is comfortable because it avoids rejection, but in return it steals authenticity, intensity, and strength. And the more you wear it, the more others become accustomed to your edited version. So much so that they believe it's the only possible one. That's why when you show your true edge, many back down. Not because you've changed, but because you've stopped pretending. Musashi saw this as a cursed pact. You surrender your truth in exchange for belonging to a group that, in reality, fears your true edge. It's an unfair transaction where you always lose more than you gain. Bought membership always comes at the cost of your freedom, and lost freedom is only regained through pain. So I ask you, who are you without the mask? What would you say if you didn't fear judgment? What would you give up without feeling guilty? These questions cut deep, and most can't bear to see the bleeding afterward. But if you're here, you may already have your hand on the handle. The hidden root of the feeling of weakness. The weakness you feel isn't born from a lack of ability, but from having denied the wildest, most determined part of yourself for too long. It's like a caged tiger inside your own chest, tamed by the ways of others. Over the years, you've not only forgotten how to free it, but you've come to believe it never existed. Musashi would have said, if you hide your edge too long, you'll forget how it cut. The truth is, that edge is still there. It's just buried under layers of fear of judgment, habits that aren't yours, and the constant search for approval. Every time you gave in to the easy way, you added another layer of rust to your blade. But the steel doesn't disappear. It just waits for you to wield it again. Musashi knew that strength is not acquired from outside, but is revealed when one stops betraying himself. The warrior doesn't create courage, but rather clears away what blocks it. His training is more excavation than construction, removing everything that dulls the blade's brilliance. That work involves facing what you've avoided for years. Recognizing that your weakness isn't natural but manufactured is the first step towards breaking it. And if it was constructed, it can be dismantled. Musashi wouldn't have talked about motivation. He would have talked about preparing for the decisive cut. Therefore, this path is not a transformation, but a return. You will not become someone new. You will rediscover the warrior who was always there, waiting for you to stop living to please and start living to cut away the excess. Habits that hide weakness. Weakness doesn't just live in big defeats, but in the small gestures you repeat without thinking. Checking your phone before getting up, comparing yourself to others instead of focusing on your training, telling yourself it doesn't matter when in reality you've already given the first few hours of your day to worthless distractions. Musashi would say, if you start the day without wielding your sword, you've already started it losing. He who cannot govern himself will be governed, he would have repeated. Every knee-jerk reaction is like lowering one's guard before combat. It's not about demonizing the tools, but about deciding who directs the battle, your will or external noise. Every morning is a testing ground. Mastering the early hours is an act of war against weakness. Before looking at a screen, check your posture, your breathing, your plan for the day. Remember, you're not just an observer, you're the creator of your own battleground. Your energy is your weapon. surrendering it early is leaving your sword in the hands of others. Weakness also seeps into your voice. When you soften your words to avoid inconveniencing others, when you say, "I don't know," knowing you do, when you apologize for taking up space, you're losing your edge. These are small, invisible cuts that erode your presence. Clarity is a cutting edge. Speaking with intention, without softening what is true, makes others listen. The silence that follows a firm statement can weigh more than 1,000 explanations. Most people fear that silence, but the warrior uses it like a cutting edge that cuts without having to move. Emotional strength versus reaction. Many believe that being strong means feeling nothing. Musashi would have smiled at such a mistake. True strength is feeling everything and still choosing your action. It's not allowing emotion to move your sword without strategy. It's not coldness, it's absolute control of the rhythm and timing of your attack. Weakness is emotion without conscience. It's reacting immediately and then regretting it. It's responding to disdain with useless violence or justifying yourself to someone who doesn't deserve your word. Musashi taught us to respond with a clean cut, precise, calculated, without unnecessary expenditure of energy. The difference lies in the intention. Crying in a meltdown because you can't bear the pressure isn't the same as crying because you understand the weight of something but still maintain control of the fight. The former is surrender, the latter, disciplined humanity. Emotional strength is about directing energy, not suffocating it. For Musashi, victimhood was a form of surrender. He didn't deny pain, but he despised the passivity that makes it a banner. Pain is inevitable. Allowing it to govern you is a choice, and the warrior doesn't choose to be governed. When you understand this, you stop seeking pity and start commanding respect. Your scars are no longer an excuse, but part of your armor. People recognize, even silently, when they're standing in front of someone who can't be broken. Choosing why and dissolving weakness. Purpose isn't found like stumbling over a stone. It's forged like forging a sword. It's a conscious decision that hardens your spirit and sharpens your mind. When that decision is made, distractions lose value, drama loses its flavor, and doubt becomes background noise. Musashi knew that a warrior without direction is like a blade without a hilt, useless in combat. With a clear why, weakness loses ground. He who has a reason can endure any battle, he would have said in his own way. That reason is your shield against the temptations that seek to lead you astray. It's the compass that indicates what deserves your energy and what deserves your contempt. Without it, any path seems right, until you discover it leads nowhere. Choosing a purpose is both an act of creation and of renunciation. It's defining what you will build, what you will protect, and above all, what you will never tolerate again. It's writing it not only on paper, but in your daily conduct. Every action must honor that purpose, or it's not worth doing. If you don't choose your purpose, others will, and it will almost always be one that serves their interests, not yours. They will keep you busy, but not fulfilled, obedient, but never free. That is the silent poison Musashi warned against, letting others decide the path of your sword. Today, the challenge is clear. Decide and protect it as if your life depended on it, because it does. A firm purpose turns every day into a training session, and every obstacle into part of the battle. Without it, there is no battle to win and no honor to defend. The fear of being alone. From a young age, you were trained to seek belonging at all costs. In school, you learned to ask permission before acting.
With friends, you understood that being accepted mattered more than being authentic. In relationships, you discovered that softening your presence was safer than showing it completely. Thus, you mistook acceptance for love. Musashi would have called this giving up your position before the duel begins. The acceptance the world offers is almost always conditional. It demands that you conform, that you remain silent, that you adopt alien ways. It's a lifeless inclusion that rewards obedience and punishes authenticity. Musashi saw this as an unfair transaction, giving up your edge in exchange for a seat at a table that isn't yours. Belonging comes at a price, and most pay it with their authenticity. They reduce their strength so not to cause discomfort. They hide their edge so not to provoke fear. That comfort is the poison that weakens the warrior. Calm on the outside, but rusty on the inside. A sword that is not used corrodes. Musashi would say that the warrior must be willing to walk alone if he wants to truly know himself. Chosen solitude reveals who you are without witnesses or judges. It is the terrain where you discover whether you are living your life or just playing a role. Building your own table is an act of independence, and if no one sits with you, all the better. More space, more clarity, more freedom. Dignified solitude is always more valuable than purchased acceptance. In it, you stop begging for belonging and begin creating a place where others must earn their seats.
Procrastination as hidden loyalty. You think procrastination is laziness, but it's often loyalty to an invisible pact with yourself not to grow too much. Somewhere along the way, you learned that shining too brightly alienated people, that directness brought punishment, that ambition caused loneliness. So you began delaying your advances so as not to inconvenience others. Musashi would have seen this as holding back your blow so as not to injure the enemy and end up losing the battle. That pact manifests itself in excuses, in postponed tasks, in steps you never take. It's not prudence, it's disguised fear. And that fear, over time, becomes a cage that you reinforce yourself. The comfort of waiting is the most dangerous strategy of the invisible enemy, inaction. Musashi said that a sword that doesn't change its edge is destined to break. Evolving requires letting go of what no longer serves you, even if it once protected you. Procrastination is the refusal to accept that change. And the cure isn't more time, but more determination. Breaking the pact means accepting that some will distance themselves when they advance, that their intensity will upset those who prefer mediocrity. But this distancing isn't a loss, it's a purification. The warrior knows that not everyone can march at their pace. The moment you stop delaying to make others feel comfortable, your progress accelerates. You begin to move forward purposefully, even if it creates friction. Because inconveniencing those who benefit from your stagnation is a sign that you're finally alive. Language, body, and presence. Every word you speak is a blow that sharpens or dulls your blade. To say, "I don't know," when you do know, reinforces doubt. To say maybe when you mean no violates your integrity. To apologize for taking up space is to lay your sword on the ground. Musashi knew that language shapes destiny, and a warrior speaks not to please, but to cut away the unnecessary. Your body also reveals whether you're ready for combat or surrender. Slumped shoulders, a lowered gaze, and shallow breathing tell the world that you've already accepted defeat. On the other hand, a firm posture, a direct gaze, and deep breathing convey presence. It's not aggressiveness, it's control. Presence is silent authority, and it doesn't need to ask permission. Walk like someone who knows they're being watched. Sit like someone who doesn't compromise their place. Move as if every gesture were part of your training. This alignment between belief and action is the root of certainty. And certainty is magnetic to others, but immovable to those who possess it. Musashi despised the tendency to use suffering as an identity. Pain is part of the journey, but not the destination. The warrior is not defined by the wound, but how he continues to wield his sword after receiving it. Surrender to pain is true defeat. From now on, every word, gesture, and breath must be chosen as if they were cuts that define your path. Strength isn't an instant. It's a presence that sustains itself day after day. And that presence can't be faked. Either you build it, or the world will mold you into invisibility. The point of no return. Deep down, you already knew everything you heard here. That silent, steady part of you nodded with every word. It remembered what it's like to move without apology, to guard your energy like a castle, to steer clear of conversations that dull your edge. This isn't a passing motivation, it's memory. It's the call of the warrior who was always awake. Now, you can't go back. You can't return to the version that procrastinated, that asked for permission to exist, that sought approval to wield its sword. Because when you know better, there are only two paths: evolve or betray yourself. And betraying yourself is the most painful of defeats. Musashi didn't respect the richest or the most celebrated, but the most authentic. The one who could look in the mirror and see no hesitation, but presence. A presence that doesn't bow, that doesn't beg, that doesn't apologize for its edge. That's the standard you set today, and it's not negotiable. Protect it as if your life depended on it, because it does. From here, every day will be a choice. Return to the safe ground the world wants for you, or continue on the warrior's path. And this decision is not made with words, but with posture, action, and sharp silence. You're no longer at the beginning. You're at the point of no return. And from now on, you either walk like someone who's burned all bridges back, or you'll be dragged into the domesticated version the world prefers. Choose the path where Musashi, seeing you, says this one doesn't need applause to know who he is.